So we have a lot of our high schools represented tonight. So that's awesome to have. Continue to put those in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. And then as you have questions, please put them in the chat or in our Q&A. And then we'll answer those at some point. And then as we have with the last two sessions, we'll reserve some time at the end for some questions and answers. So how can families be involved through the scholar experience? So want to take a few moments to chat about that. Again, my name is Robert Ortiz, and I'm the Director of Family Engagement for College and Career. So I work out of our central management office with our RTCC team, and I have the privilege to work with our campus teams and our RTCC staff, and just how can we better communicate with families and have you be part of the process, right? We know that it's important for you to be part of these decisions and to be part of these conversations that your scholars are having, because we understand these are big life-changing decisions that are being made as it relates to choosing a college, navigating a career, choosing a career, being prepared for that career, especially if your scholar is the first in the family to go to college. That just can change the trajectory of the family and impact generations to come. So this is a big deal, right? And so we know that, and we want to be able to support you in the best ways that we can so that you are involved in this process. I do have, this session is tailored to juniors, families of high school students, and also alumni. So as our Uplift scholars graduate, we do have a dedicated team that supports our Uplift grads through the college and career journey. So Andres Hernandez is our one of our alumni success counselors who also works with families of alums. So wanted to highlight his information here so that you're familiar with his name, and so that as scholars graduate, they know that they have someone who can be supporting them through that process. So with every program, we have goals, right? We have an objective. What do we want to see? What do we want to create? And when it comes to family engagement for RTCC, this is the objective, is to help families be informed. They have the information and the tools necessary to support their scholars with the post-secondary decision-making process. So again, we understand that your role in this is vital and it's important. And we know that scholars, that sometimes it can be a tough decision, right? Especially I think when scholars want to move out of state or they want to move away from home, that can be a hard conversation. And we know as parents, that can be a very hard conversation to have and a hard reality. And so how can we give you all the information and tools necessary to where as a family you feel good about that decision, despite maybe how uncomfortable that may be, when it comes down to what's going to be the best decision, right? And so going back to, it's a big deal, and we want to be supporters with that process. So what's the value, right? And if you're on this call, you get the value, right? You know how important it is to be involved with your scholar's education. You understand how important that is. And you being on the call or you watching this recording afterward, you understand that value. And so some of the things that I want to point out here is, research, data, I think across the board, the more that parents are involved in their scholars' education, then the more that they're engaged with their learning, right? And so the more that they're engaged with their learning, we're going to see, positive scores on exams. We're going to see positive grades in the classroom. We're going to see motivation to go to college or maybe go or pursue different careers because they have that support at home, right? And so that makes all the difference in the scholar's experience, is to have their parent involved in the ways that they can. Even if you aren't able to attend sessions from time to time, or you're not able to make that conference call or now make the town hall, there's still ways where you can have those conversations with your scholar at home to where you're still engaged in that process and you're still getting the information, despite maybe schedules keeping you from, attending things as much as you'd like to. And then one thing that we stressed earlier throughout, I think, the evening is how important it is to know who your RTCC counselors are, know who your deans are, know who your principals are, your academic directors are, know who the teachers are, right? The more that you are involved, the stronger those relationships will become. And so, again, those of you who are listening to this or watching this, you see the value of that, but it's just pointing out that, when questions arise and you need some help, when you have that relationship and that open communication with staff on your campus, that just opens up for more opportunities to be supported and to gain the information that you need. So cannot stress that enough, right? And I know sometimes you may feel like, oh, well, I keep asking them a question or I keep emailing them like every week and maybe I'm bothering them, and want to just say, no, you're not. The more that you engage with us, the more that we are happy to assist and spend some time with you. And so definitely want to open up that communication with your team. And the last thing that I'll hit on here is something that I'm really passionate about is, this allows you the opportunity to really advocate for what you're needing. And, I think a lot of times it may be information, but, let's just say that you understand a need about your family or you understand a need about your scholar that may not be well known by a teacher or by a dean or by your academic director. And that's an opportunity where as a parent, you can advocate for what is needed for your family and have someone listen and then work to fill that need for you. Even if it's not academic related, it could be, hey, do you have resources in the community that can help with childcare? Or because I got things I got to work on the weekends, and that would be really helpful to know about. Or I need assistance with just life in general. Who can I reach out to in the community that can provide that service? We have those services, or we know about those services, and we can be able to walk through that process with you. So that's something that I really want to encourage you all to know, that is an opportunity, is room to advocate for yourself and advocate for the needs of your family. So how can you be involved? And that's a pretty loaded question. One thing I will highlight is we did launch a podcast a few months ago, and maybe some of you are like, what's a podcast? And that's a very fair question. But essentially, you can think of it as kind of like a radio show that you can find through an app on your phone, or you can log on to a website and listen to. And it's something that we did produce weekly. Now we're producing monthly. And Camille Ehlers, who you saw in the Career Services presentation, has joined the show a couple of times and is going to be a reoccurring guest going forward. And we invite people from career industries. We invite people from universities, so like admissions reps. We also have had community-based leaders on the podcast, and we talk about things that are important for families to know. And we try to be relevant to what's happening now. So this year, we've been living through a pandemic. COVID has disrupted all of our lives in many ways, and that especially has impacted education. And so we have talked almost every episode, I think it is every episode, about how COVID has changed the admissions process for college. It's changed the ACT testing at the beginning. It's changed how STAR was impacted, at the end of the year last year, and also how it's impacting jobs. And so we've had people come on the show and really talk about, how is this impacting education? How is it impacting college? And how is it impacting careers? And so that's a great resource for you to hear what's happening. Tomorrow we'll release a new episode, and we'll actually have one of our Uplift principals, academic director, and also one of our Uplift deans to talk about virtual learning and just how they're thinking about that. How are they thinking about changing and adapting to the needs of families in a virtual environment? And so really, really good information there, that you can stay connected and engaged on what's happening. I think obviously, right, social media, websites, uh, especially now, where I feel like you're probably feeling like you get a new update every day about something. But those are really many ways that we try to get information out to you. And especially in a virtual environment, is just being engaged, just like you are today, and taking advantage of these opportunities. And then a couple of things that I'll hit here, which I know Sarita talked about and that we talked about earlier with careers, is, you know, asking your scholar, hey, have you been thinking about colleges? What's on your college list? I know that you're supposed to create a list of colleges. Like, what's that looking like? What are your top three? And then, what are your bottom two? And why are they your bottom two? Right. And I think those are the questions that can be asked to really learn more about what's going inside your scholar's head. And what are they thinking about? Why is Texas A&M their top school on their list, and why is UT at the bottom of their school list, right? And so those are just good questions to ask. Hey, what are you thinking about, and what matters to you? What are you looking for in a college education? And you may be on this call and you're like, we're an Aggie family, so there's no questions about it. A&M better be on the top of that list. Or you may be a family where, community college is the way to go. Maybe that's part of what y'all discussed and maybe your priorities. But really asking the scholar, like, hey, how did you, and how did these colleges get on your list? And then with that, also asking about those careers, right? What are you interested in? What do you like to do? I know you enjoy math, you enjoy the sciences. How does that translate to a career interest, right? And so having these conversations where you can learn more about just what your scholar's interested in and how they're thinking about this journey.
Robert, can I also add to that?
Yeah, please do.
Just in terms of having the conversation and sharing that dialogue with your seniors and juniors, add in your village, your RTCC staff, because I can't tell you how many times scholars have told me, well, I think that this pathway is for me because of the cost. And you'd be surprised how many schools will let you know that they're willing to give you the aid. And so it's not about how much the school costs, it's about how much they're willing to give you. And so your team can really assist you in that process. Or I remember my first year working with Uplift, a scholar considering being very nervous about going to school out of state, and the school gave her a full ride scholarship. Me, her mom, we all cried together because she never thought, could be my reality. So again, talking about that college list, considering all the options is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you mentioning that. And yeah, I was talking to an Uplift alum 2 weeks ago, and they graduated, I think a couple of years ago, so 2018. And he goes to a university in around the Boston area. And I was just asking him about, like, well, how, why did you choose that school? Like, how did that end up on your radar with it being out of state? Again, first time living outside of Texas, outside of Dallas, outside of just the neighborhood that he grew up in. And he spoke to that. He was like, this college got on my radar through my conversations with my counselor. I applied and they gave me a full ride. And he was like, it was cheaper to go to this university that's out of state, that is upward to $60,000 a year for free, right? He was going for free. That was a cheaper option than going to Mountain View College, right? And so again, it's we ask students to have that list because, again, going to Ms. Pritchard's point, you just don't know what a school is going to offer you, and let schools provide you a financial aid package, and then you can go from there and deciding what's going to make sense for you to go to. So questions and conversations. I won't go over everything on this slide, but I did want to mention this, of just giving you some tips as parents on some of those questions that you can have as a toolbox when asking your scholars some questions, to really getting to know, what's going on in their planning, what are they thinking, what are their interests, and what are some events that they can attend, some virtual events, and then what's their checklist, right? Our counselors do a great job with making sure that they have a checklist, they know the deadlines, they have the information they need. And so these are just some good questions that you can be asking to get some of that information out. So now we're going to shift over to alums. So I know we have a lot of parents on the session today who have seniors this year. And so this time next year, they'll be graduated from high school and they'll be on their college or career journey. So again, going back to, we have a dedicated alumni team who supports scholars who've graduated through their college and career journey. So those services also do not stop for parents. And so, ways that we encourage parents to be involved with that is, knowing what knowing what college they're going to, what's their culture, knowing that them going to college has economic and social value, right? We know that a college graduate just has so many more opportunities than someone who doesn't have a college degree. Not to say that's the end all be all. However, studies and research have shown that it just provides more opportunities. And so there's value in that. And to access supports, right? Ms. Pritchett talks about the village and that we are a village for your scholar, and then scoping out those people at their college or universities who can play in the role of support for them in that experience. And I know we have a question about Grad Snap, and so hey, we got the question answered there. So thank you, Ms. Pritchett. And then yeah, we want parents to be involved. So we'll have some events for parents of alumni, and we'll also have opportunities for parents to reach out to our alumni success team just to gain further insight and tips on how to be supportive of their scholar who's out in college, and then make you aware of resources that you can also be in communication with your scholar about. So the support does not stop, which again is something that's very unique to Uplift that is not found at a lot of school districts, which has really been impressive to me because I was the first in my family to go to college, and my parents loved me and they wanted to help support me with my goals, but because they didn't have that experience, they really didn't know how to support me with that, right? And so I think about how I wish my parents had a team like TCC who could, or RTCC, who could be supporting them on how to support me, right? And so that's where that value comes into play, and we understand that being a need, and we want to support families in the best way we can with that. And then questions to ask. So we mentioned earlier that the FAFSA, TASFA, applying for scholarships, how that is not a one and done situation. It is continual. As long as you want to go to college and have financial assistance, you need to apply for this every year. And so that continues to be a support area that we provide to our Uplift grads throughout their college journey, is supporting them with the FAFSA and things of that nature. Hopefully by then they've gotten a hang of it, right? But we know that it never hurts to have some more support, or maybe have another set of eyes on the application to make sure everything's completed there. And then here, just also talking about like, for parents, I think sometimes it can be hard because while your scholar's in high school or even before, you could just call up the front desk and be like, hey, did my kid show up to school today? Or, hey, what's their grade like in this class? Or how many tardies do they have? And then that information is readily given to you, right? There's no question. However, when they're in college, you can't just call the admissions office and be like, hey, is my kid going to class? Or what's their grade like right now? Or, it becomes a different ball game with how information is shared with families. And so that's something that, again, you want to be in communication with your scholar on, and to know that, if you want to be updated on how they're doing, that's going to need to come from them, and really being honest with you about, are they struggling? Are they doing well? But the biggest thing that we see that scholars encounter while in college is that, it can be tough emotionally, mentally, especially if they're away from home and they're living on campus. It could be a culture shock, right? And so that can be an experience that takes some adjusting to, and so which then can also impact how they're doing in their classes, right? And so those are just some areas where it's hard to have an answer to on how to, support that. But it comes back down to having that open communication with them and just being real about it, and then still encouraging them to push on, even though it may be a little tough for a season. And I know that was a lot of information, so wanted to take some time to answer any questions that you have, or maybe resources that you would like to be mentioned that maybe I didn't share, or even an opportunity to ask questions about just, college and career process, and maybe a little bit of what we shared earlier.
Robert, can I also add to the GradSnap piece?
Yeah, please do.
Families, just to remind you guys, with GradSnap, although you may not be familiar yet, your scholar, we have our alumni success team. As you heard about Alejandro Hernandez earlier, they come into our virtual classrooms. They actually introduce ourselves on each Uplift campus so that scholars can set up their GradSnap accounts and already be connected to the alumni success team. So if they ever have questions, imagine having a lifeline anytime you had questions about the FAFSA or things that you guys are commenting in the chat. They are a direct lifeline when scholars graduate, to assist them every year in the financial aid process. So you definitely want to ensure that your scholars are connected on GradSnap. It's almost like having a social media account, but you use that for your benefit after graduation. And so that could be used for a number of things. And what I also love is that our alumni success team, they are that village, and many times they come out to the campuses, pre-COVID. They visit our scholars just to check in. How are you doing? Not just academically, but how are you faring out on campus socially? How's your mental well-being? Sometimes they buy them pizza and host different events on campus just to keep our Uplift family connected, because there are many Uplift scholars from various campuses who end up at the same institution. And if they feel, maybe disconnected, or maybe they're learning and making new friends, they already have their Uplift friends from various campuses. So GradSnap allows you to stay connected, not just with the alumni team, but also with other Uplift scholars as well, who end up attending an institution.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Any other questions that you have on how to be involved, or maybe some tips on how to, assess interest from your scholar, or resources that you would like? All right. Comments, any additional comments from my colleagues? Um, I'm always good with ending sooner than later, just to give time back to families, but would also like to open it up to my colleagues if they have any thoughts they want to share.
Share. I can just reiterate that You definitely don't have to do this process alone. I know for myself, I'm a first generation college student when I went to college, and it was daunting for me and my mom trying to figure out financial aid, all of the things. And we didn't have as robust of a college and career program as Uplift has. So it definitely was just us Googling on the website, just searching. That doesn't have to be your experience. I know I can speak for everyone here that we love answering your questions and helping you figure it out. It really is the thing that makes us want to do this work and makes us so excited to come to work every day. So take advantage of us and take advantage of your college counselors on your campus because they're so excited to help you and to navigate that process with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going to Hannah's comments, a lot of us, I would say, all of us at Uplift, we have a personal ambition and personal reason why we work here, and that includes working closely with you, parents, and making sure that you're supported in the best way possible. Part of this journey, we know it's daunting, as Hannah shared, of you know college and career because it is such a big decision, and so we are here to support you as the best ways that we can to make sure that you are set up and good to go, and that you have everything that you need. And so definitely want to extend another thank you for calling in tonight and joining our session. Want to thank Hannah, Camille, and Sarita for sharing financial aid and career services resources. Again, we will have this session on YouTube. And so please go back and rewatch it, as there was a lot of information and sometimes it needs to be heard a couple more times, or maybe see a certain image a few times, for you to really get a good understanding. And so we feel like we know this a lot because we see it every day, and we've been seeing it every day for the past 5-10 years, right? And so um, it's a lot to absorb. I did see a question come in. So yeah, the question is, let's just say a scholar's in college and they're having a hard time. They want to come back and visit with a high school teacher. And so, I think obviously that would be okay, right? I think maybe depending on the teacher on how they would want to be engaged with or maybe talked to, but I think that's always an open door and always a possibility. I can definitely speak for the RTCC staff. We would welcome that strongly and be able to connect them to perhaps a teacher they had before, to support them with what they need help with. I think part of that question also is I would think about, what are the resources on their college campus that could serve as an immediate resource, right? What if that's a tutoring center or a writing center, or does their professor have office hours that they can attend to get that additional help? And so there would be resources on the college campus that I think could be an immediate resource to them. In addition to maybe they want to, touch base with their teacher to get some maybe a different perspective or some further insight with what they're experiencing.
I agree, Robert. I think that's also why Grad Snap is so important, because your alumni success counselors, if you aren't able to reach your high school teacher for whatever reason, or if you just need that supplemental resource, the alumni success counselors can point you in the right direction or point your scholar in the right direction by assisting you with that extra tutoring help, or if they may be able to help set up an uplift study group, something that's going to be consistent and sustainable um, throughout the course of their year. So again, obviously, yes, they can go to their high school counselors, but absolutely use that resource, because you just never know what doors that opens.
Right, for sure. All right. Well, I think this concludes our time tonight in this session. I know I will stay on a little bit longer just to see if any more questions come out. But again, want to thank all of you for your time and for joining us tonight. And we look forward to more opportunities where we can visit with you virtually, and hopefully, we can meet with you in person sometime soon. Maybe it will be 2021, but whenever it is, we definitely look forward to the time we can be in person again. Thank you. The 2021 yard signs, when are they coming? I think that's to be determined, but I would definitely reach out to your campus staff and let them know that you would definitely like to see that.
And yeah, every campus, every campus went through an external vendor for those signs. So we created the graphic at this network level, and then they went through a vendor. And so I imagine that sometime early second semester, we will revamp the design for 2021 and then be able to put those orders in. But I'm sure there are other online, if you want something sooner, you probably can get your own design made, or maybe that could be I'm just brainstorming now, that might be a cool thing, a competition to engage scholars with, like who can design the best 2021 yard sign or something to be the model that they can vote on. So there's lots of opportunity there, I'm sure.